Do you take things personally? Do you want to know how to change the tone in your home so it's warm and fuzzy instead of like and cold and ice and whatever? We have an amazing guest for you today. Her name is Rebbetzin Feigy Twerski. I'm sure everybody's heard about her. She's an author. She's a speaker. She is just so yummy. Someone on staff said, oh my gosh, she told the story 25 years ago. I still remember it to this day. I wish I knew what that story is. Okay, we'll get there. But anyway, here we go. We are going to have an amazing show. And by the end of this show, you will understand how to move the dials and switches around in your home so that you can create a beautiful atmosphere in the home. Stay tuned. This is Leah Richeimer for the Ladies TalkShow. Okay, we'd like to welcome to our show Rebbetzin Feigy Twerski. Thank you so much for coming on. I've been a fan for decades. Everybody loves you. Such an honor to have you here today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Okay, good. So my question for you, we go in very deep, very fast here. So, it's like, it just seems like it's in the too hard basket. I mean, what we're trying to cover today is how to not take things personally and how to create a home, the tone in the home that's good. Maybe can we start with the question of how do you not take things personally? Because to me, that's maybe other people have this problem. I don't have this problem. Wink, wink. Okay. How do you not take things personally? I'd love to start with that.
Well, it's an excellent question. And I think that if we stop and think that it's kind of getting ourselves out of the way, which is a really, really difficult thing to do, especially in our culture or at any time, because what drives a person is ego. Me, myself, and I. And if a situation comes up and we find it challenging and we want to respond in a negative way, if we stop for a moment, and here's where the pause button comes in. The pause button, my husband always said, is the most phenomenal creation, because instead of reacting reflexively, that we stop for a moment and we ask ourselves, is this the best way to respond to this situation? What is it going to achieve? Is it going to create more dissonance between us? Or am I going to be able to bring us closely and more closely together? We don't want to put a wedge in the relationship. So not taking things personally is stopping for a moment and saying to ourselves, this other person who is saying something that offends us or something that hurts us, whether it's a husband or whether it's a friend, that we stop for a moment and we think, you know what, this doesn't really have to be about me. It could be that this person, my husband, could have had a difficult time at work today, could have had a difficult time in Kollel today. Something could have happened along the way that has absolutely nothing to do with me. And that's why he came in in a kind of bad mood. And of course, the person that we always let things out on are the people who are closest to us. A husband lets it out on a wife, or wife on a husband, and it feels like it's directed at us, where in fact it has to do with whatever is going on in their life. So if we are wise enough to use that pause button and to say, just a minute, let me consider what might be the situation here, and let me not respond at this moment. And if I allow it to go, and this, especially when it comes to a husband, he comes home from a hard day's work and we have a good supper ready, and we sit him down and we give him a good supper, and his mood turns and becomes better. And then at some point we could say to him, you're ordinarily such an even-keeled, nice guy, and I was kind of surprised by your reaction when you walked in and you said something to me that was hurtful. Maybe it was something like, why is this house such a mess? Why aren't the kids, in bed already? Or whatever it might be. And it's not the way you usually interact with me. So I'm wondering, is there something that happened that caused this this reaction, and then he can at that point he feels that it's safe to share, and that's what we want to create. We want to create an environment where the people who are closest to us feel that it's safe for them to share, and at that point he probably will say, "I'm sorry, but yes, I had a difficult day today. Such and such criticized me. He didn't think my work was up to par, or I had an altercation with somebody at the kollel." Whatever it might be, he'll come and he'll share it, and that'll bring husband and wife closer together, instead of her reacting when he walked in, and her reacting by saying, "You hurt me," and our natural response would be, "Well, let me hurt you even more."
So this is really wise advice that I can take right now when I'm not in the heat of the moment. Okay. But for all of us who are like normal people, it's that pause button, which I love that. We spoke about that in the pre-show interview, and I'm like, oh, that is like, if I could master that. The question is, you're a very calm person, and it seems like well thought out. You've got discipline, or self-mastery, that's a place to get to. So don't feel bad for the rest of us who maybe aren't there, but how did you get there? I mean, I assume when you had lots of little kids running around and screaming and whatever, there was a different, what's the word?
Dynamic.
A different dynamic. And it's that pause button sounds like a lovely thing. Maybe when I retire, then I'll be able to do the pause button. Right now, it's like a little too hard.
Well, it's good that you brought that up, because we're not going to always be successful. But if we know that it's a goal to strive for, that it's something I would like to do, then maybe it'll start out by, I'll be successful 1 out of 10 times. And then I'll see how that really is effective. And it really does bring us closer together. Instead of driving a wedge between us, then I'm motivated that maybe the next time, maybe I'll try again. And then it might be 2 out of 10 times. It doesn't happen overnight just because we learn about this, that this is a possible method of interacting. It's not going to happen automatically. We have to work on it, especially if we're accustomed to behaving differently, to just, you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you even more.
Can you walk us through a scenario? Okay, let's just use the example. The husband walks in the door and he says a comment that, he says, "Why is this house always so messy?" Okay, so the answer would be, if you gave me more help, maybe I wouldn't. Or if you helped clean up, maybe it would, whatever nasty comment would be like our typical, or other people's typical. Okay. But walk us through, how would the pause button work in that moment, in that, like a.
Well, I think that instead of responding in the way that you just mentioned, if you would, why don't you take over for a day and let's see how well you'll do.
Yeah, right.
Let's reverse roles. Let's reverse roles and see how well you. Instead of that, if I use the pause button, I say to myself, you know what? Where is that going to get me? Where is that going to get me? It's not going to. It's going to create, and I mentioned to you, I think that the Panovizher Rebbe had once said, he said, what we want more than anything else is to have good children, good, healthy children. He says, and there's a formula for that. He says it's a two-part formula. The first thing is to daven, that we pray to the Almighty, please help me kind of foster children that are healthy, emotionally healthy, and spiritually healthy, and physically healthy. Please, Rebbetzin Shalom. And we address that to Hashem. That's number one. Second thing is shalom bayis. He said those are the two critical things. So if I know that shalom bayis is so critical, not only for the relationship between myself and my husband, which, is so critical, because for children, we all know when children see their parents caring about each other, loving each other, being respectful of each other, it creates such a sense of security for our children. It's a gift we can give them more than anything else, more than designer clothes or designer toys or rooms or for themselves. it's more critical than anything else. So if I keep in mind that, this is an investment, not only in my own shalom bayis and also in my own personal growth, because it's about me too. I want to become a mensch, more of a mensch as I grow. So it's an investment in myself. It's an investment in my relationship with my husband. And moreover, it's an investment in the health of my children, in their future. If they see this, plus the fact, which we all know, is that children are very astute and very intuitive, and they watch carefully how we're interacting with them. We want to teach them that in the future that their relationships will be healthy relationships. And the way we teach them that isn't by preaching and by giving them a speech. It's by, they're watching us every second, and they will learn from our behavior, the way we behave and the way we act. So all of those things are so critical, and that might encourage us to use that pause button.
You're saying in the midst of the thing, when your rage is like you've just had a day from crazy COVID, your kids are home, whatever it is, and your husband walks and says that, and when you're just bursting, you're saying to keep in mind all of this benefit that would come to you if you just, we have a thing here, duct tape, if you just use your duct tape, and just don't say anything. And then, like you said, later you can say it, but then you'll have thought about the best way to say it. Am I understanding it?
Yes, and I think that you also we prepare ourselves with that information, with the knowledge of how beneficial it is beforehand. It's not just in the moment. Once I've thought that through and I realize the benefit of it, then when it comes to the moment of challenge, then I don't have to start thinking about all those things in that moment and creating that kind of information base. I already have it because I've thought about it. Mm-hmm. So when I have it because I've thought about it beforehand, then that will give me pause. That will help me push the pause button.
Fantastic. We have a bunch of questions coming in. Hold on a second. Okay, this is...
Okay, so this is beyond phenomenal. And like you said, Leah, the pause button is, if only we could really, manufacture that and be able to actually hit it, and it freezes everything.
It was on our phone. We need it on the phone.
No joke. But someone is asking, what happens if the constant communication is always like that? It's always high strung and intense, meaning for the beginning of time, since they got married, they've always had that communication. So they never had this.
You mean back and forth? They've never
that they've always had where if the husband attacks, the woman attacks back, or vice versa. Meaning there has never been that, how's he feeling? Maybe something happened. There's been none of that for years. It's not just you could start fresh. So how does someone do it if they're already so far in?
That is an excellent question because, obviously Rome isn't built in a day. And we have to really start with a small little steps, baby steps. But, if we, as women, we're the guardians of the home. And really the responsibility is more upon us than it is upon the man, because we're the ones that are creating the environment and the atmosphere in the home. So if we start, again, with a baby step where we know that this is so critically important to the entire family, then our husbands, even though they don't come through right away, but what's her name? Wiener. She wrote a book called Divorce Busting. And in it, she says that sometimes, women come in and they're told, you need to start doing something about your marriage. You need to see somebody. You need to see a therapist. You need to work on it. And the woman will say, well, what can I do? My husband isn't interested. He's not interested. I would go get some help. My husband doesn't want to get some help. And her suggestion is that if a butterfly flutters its wings in Hong Kong, the effect of that fluttering, the wings, the butterfly fluttering its wing will be felt in California, in Milwaukee, in Chicago, that energy flows. And the fact is that even if our husband isn't so interested and so willing to work on this, if we ourselves do it, we transform, we change the energy in the home. Even though he hasn't done anything, but there's a different energy because I am different. I am different. So I bring something different to the home. Again, not all at once. It doesn't happen in a minute, but I begin by doing that. And sometimes if I need a little bit of assistance to do that, I could see somebody, whether it's a Rebbetzin, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a therapist, and say to them, I really want to work on this. And my husband will never come, he'll never join me, but I want to do this. And it can be done by one person, because one person doing it brings a different energy in the home. And the children benefit from that energy, from that different energy they bring to the home. So it doesn't have to be, because women like to kind of come in and blame the husband. Well, I can't do this because my husband won't. It doesn't matter. Your husband doesn't have to. You start doing it on your own, and you'll see that changes will take place. And when he is the beneficiary of the energy that has changed in the home, things will happen eventually. Things will change for him, with him as well. But it begins with us. We start little by little.
Fantastic. Okay, good. We have one more question, and I want to go into our next point.
Yeah, is in terms of children, meaning to do the pause button, if somebody has, let's say, not done it, or it hasn't been something that they're used to doing in the house, that's it? Like their children are older, they have teens. Is there any way to undo the damage that was done?
Well, you know what? We don't look backwards, we look forward. And we can't undo what was done, but we can move forward and starting. And we're also teaching our children a lesson, even when we start later in life. What we're saying to them is, no matter where you are in life, you can start doing something that's productive and that's constructive. So it definitely could be helpful, no matter at what stage. Some women have called me over the years, young Bablach, and they say to me, I know that I overacted with my child. My child did something, and I really overreacted. I screamed, I yelled, I punished, and I know that it wasn't the punishment didn't fit the crime. So she says, and I know I've scarred and marred my child for life. And I always say to them, don't worry, honey, you didn't scar and mar them for life. You overreacted, and that's part of human nature. So you know what you do? You counteract that by overreacting in a positive direction. So when that same child comes through and passes by you, you grab that child and you give him a big hug and kiss, and they'll look at you with a puzzled look like, hey, what's that for? And you say to them, just because I love you. For no reason, just because I love you. So you overact in the positive direction. So there is this dance that we do. Everybody, there is no mother that I know that hasn't overreacted at some point in her life. But then she's mindful of the fact, like, oh, I feel terrible that I did that, but I'm not going to wallow in self-pity or in guilt. I'm going to move forward to repair that by overreacting in a positive direction. And that we're always capable of doing. So the pause button is always a possibility. When kids wait for you to react the way you always do without using a pause button, all of a sudden you stop for a minute and you say to yourself, just a minute, is this what I want to say? Is this what I want to do? And you react totally differently. It will register with them.
This is awesome. When you overreact with a kid, just to follow up with that thing before I want to go to the next issue, but would it be something to tell a kid, I overreacted yesterday. I'm sorry. This is the point I was trying to make, but I kind of, over punished you or whatever it is. Would that be an appropriate thing?
I think that it's okay to say, I'm sorry, honey, something I wasn't I wasn't in a good mood, and I'm sorry that I overdid it. Yes, you could say that, but even more important than that is your behavior. Is that you hug them, you kiss them, and you say, I'm sorry. Sometimes mommies and daddies also overreact.
Yeah,
I think
awesome.
it's okay.
Okay, let's go to the next one. That's good. Did you have a question? I can go. Okay. Okay, so the second point that we had in not taking things personally is this whole concept of it's not about me. So that's like, it seems like that's something way in those people could do that. First, let me manage what I'm doing right now. And then, like that's the gap between where we might currently be holding, except my listeners, everybody is way advanced in this, but just saying, getting to that, it's not about me, and not to, not taking it so personally. How do you become that person? How do you grow in that direction?
Well, I think I think the simple answer to that is that we have to recognize that just as the way that we are dealing with difficulties in our lives, that we need to know that the human condition is such that everybody is dealing with difficulties in their life. It's not just me. We get kind of self-absorbed in this me, myself, and I generation, where I think I'm the only one that's singled out to be suffering or to have a difficult life, whatever it is, difficult children, difficult husband, difficult parnasa, difficult whatever it may be. And then when I stop to think, and I think beforehand, you know what? Other people have this thing too. They also have difficulties in their life. And when I recognize that, then when something comes up and a person really hurts me in some way, and I say to myself, you know what? That's coming from a place of great pain in that person. They're going through something that's very, very difficult for them. They're suffering. And as a result, they lashed out. What they said or didn't come from them. It came from the pain that they had. They tell a wonderful story of the Baba Rebbe, who was my Reb Shleimer, who was my husband's uncle, that he lived on the West Side when he first came to America, and they needed a minion, and they were missing the 10th man. So his son, Reb Naftolcha, went out to Central Park and saw a man sitting on a bench, and he said to him, we need a 10th for a minion. Will you please come and join us? And very reluctantly, the man came. And the Rebbe, Reb Shleimer Babava, said to him, you know what, you can lead the davening. And so he led the davening, and next day they encountered a similar situation. So Reb Naftolcha went out, and it was a Shabbos, and he saw the man smoking on a bench. And he said to him, will you come be the 10th person? And he came in, and the Rebbe again, Reb Shleimer, who knew that he had been smoking on Shabbos, said to him, will you lead us in the davening? And everybody was aghast. Everybody knew he had just been smoking. And Reb Naftolcha confronted the Baba Rav after that. He said, how could you do that? He was desecrating the Shabbos. He was smoking in front of everybody. So the Baba Rav said, he wasn't smoking. It was the German, it was Hitler who was smoking. This person had been a survivor and had suffered through such horrible punishment during the war. And as a result was mad. He was angry with God. He says it wasn't the person. The person himself, given to himself, was a good Jew, but he had been subjected to the horrors of the wars. So the Rebbe said, he's not the one smoking. It's Hitler that was smoking. And he was Mekaravim, and he kept coming, and the Rebbe kept telling him to lead the davening, and he lost contact with him. And years and years later, the Rebbe, he was at an event in Borough Park, and a person came over to him whom he didn't recognize, and he said, Rebbe, I want to introduce you to my family. And he had family, children who were all B'nai Torah, who were all observant, children and grandchildren. And he said to the Rebbe, you know why I have a family like this? It's because you didn't shun me. When I was smoking on Shabbos, you understood that it wasn't me, that it was the terrible things I had gone through. So, okay, the things the people we encounter aren't the ones who necessarily have gone through a war or have gone through the period of Hitler, Yamashima. But everybody goes through things in their life. I had a woman who was being tortured by her mother-in-law. Her mother-in-law was so nasty and so mean to her. And she went to one of these Kabbalists and she addressed the question to him, why does my mother-in-law hate me so much? I never did anything to her. And this Kabbalist said to her, honey, she doesn't hate you. She hates herself. It's, there was something inside of her that she felt she had done inappropriately, and it gave rise to feelings of really not feeling good about herself, of despising herself. And she let it out on this daughter-in-law. And all the negative stuff she let out wasn't really coming from her. It was coming from the fact that she was at odds with herself. She had not come to peace with herself. So when we encounter people who hurt us, whether it's a husband, whether it's children, whether it's friends, sometimes our children hurt us. And then it's just, if we stop to think about it, they're trying to establish their own independence, their own identity. And it's not so much about us, it's about them struggling with becoming the people they want to be. Or a husband, again, when he says something inappropriate to us and we're feeling like we're taking it personally, we need to stop and say, why would he be doing this? And if we extend understanding and empathy and sympathy, and instead of retaliating by doing something even more hurtful to him, then we stop that painful cycle. And instead of creating a wedge between us, we come much closer. And when I'm able to say later on and say, I know what you said to me, was hurtful, but I know that it's really not coming from the person you are, because I know that you're such a good person. I know. And if you want to share, I'll be happy to hear what it is that gave rise to your feeling that way, to you're interacting with me that way.
So it's gorgeous. Wow, what stories. Very moving. The question is, in the heat of the moment again, and I guess maybe I'm just so used to, a thousand things going on at once in my life and in my the people I work with, it's just so harried. Having the, frame of mind to be able to not take it personally. Again, that seems like
superhuman.
I guess it's superhuman. I mean, I hear that understanding that at least is the get to place is valuable. I would like to know, I'm going to take a question at the same time. I'd like to know a little bit about how practically that works, but let me take this question because they were flagging. Okay.
Yeah. So somebody's asking, if your husband takes his mood out on the kids and the kids take it personally, how do you help them without impacting your shalom bayis?
That's an excellent question. I think that again, we model the behavior for our children, and if they're able to see us doing the same thing, if they see us doing the same thing, that we stop and we don't react in the way that one would normally react. So first of all, by doing that, we're modeling that behavior, and then we can pull them aside and we could say to them, Tati, Daddy, Abba really loves you very much, but he's had a rough day, and it's not that he's angry with you, but he just needs time to wind down. He needs time because things, it's just been a rough time for him. So we all have to, when you have rough times, you can say, honey, on days when things aren't going so well for you, and you feel like you want to lash out at everybody because you yourself aren't feeling so great. Well, adults also have those moments. Adults are also human beings. And it's not that, just make sure you understand, it's not because daddy doesn't love you.
That doesn't come out of disloyalty to your husband. I mean, it's kind of like going behind his back and whispering about him to your kid.
No, I don't think so. I think because when he calms down, I think that's what he would want to say to them also. I think that's okay. If they misbehaved and did something that was really, really inappropriate, then it's an overreaction. Then you might talk to your husband and say, I understand. We do have to be guiding them and teaching them, but that was a little bit counterproductive. It was again, it didn't fit the crime. The punishment didn't fit the crime. So maybe if you want to, you can say to them, "Look, honey, I'm sorry that I overreacted that way, but I did want you to know that what you did was not acceptable, and I'm sure that in the future you won't be doing it, but Daddy loves you very much."
Okay, so this is great. I want to make sure, before I go into the next point, I want to make sure that did we give enough practical of how to, it's not about me, how to even go there? I mean, I guess if you have sort of like a flag in your head when someone does something probably to hurt you, which is the thing that makes you want to react the fastest. If there was a flag in our head that said, it's everything's not about me, whatever, maybe that's the thing that'll turn us around and get us to that.
Well, you know what? At the basis of all of this is ego. It's ego. What makes us feel so terrible about anything and everything that people say to us that aren't of a positive nature? It's because how could they say that to me? After all, me, I'm this wonderful, terrific person, and here they're cutting me down. If we would work on the fact that they say, all the philosophers say that ego is the source of all misery in life. Ego is the source of all misery. If I could let go of my ego and I could say, okay, so nicht gefährlich, so he touched my ego, he bruised my ego. But, it's not the end of the world. Why am I reacting this way? Just because my ego was bruised. So ego is our biggest nemesis. It's the biggest enemy that we have in life. And that's why we react the way that we do, is because we are ego involved. And today it's a world of, it's all ego. It's me, myself, and I. It's has everything to do just with me.
The selfies.
Right, exactly. It's the selfie generation.
You would have been embarrassed in the old days to set up a camera, turn it on a thing so that a timer, and standing somewhere and taking a picture of yourself. You would be embarrassed. Today it's right. Yeah, every picture has to have you in it. Very good. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is to not be so intent on winning. That's a tough one. Okay.
All right. To not be so intent on winning. And that too has to do with ego. It's also ego. I have to win. And in a marriage, it's devastating. When I have to win in a marriage and I don't give the other person the wherewithal to shine, because it has to be, it's always about me and about me getting the last word and having the other person concede that I'm right. It again has to do totally with ego. Winning, somebody said, if I win and he loses, then how do I feel being married to a loser?
Right. Hello. Yeah, they're all nodding. Yeah.
Because in the end, that's what it ends up. So winning is a source of great, great stress in a marriage. And to be able to say, look, I'm sorry. So to say to our husbands, I'm sorry, I was wrong, is a huge, huge thing. Because I don't have to win. It doesn't really, if I have a good sense of self, and here is where we really need to work on understanding that we are okay. It's when there's an empty hole inside of us, when there's this black hole that you can't fill up, that's when we are intent on winning. If I feel good about myself, if I look at myself, and it's very important, it's not the same as ego. Understanding that I have a lot to offer. I'm Rebbeinu Shalom's child, first of all, and I have this brilliant neshama inside of me that's part and parcel of the Rebbeinu Shalom. And the Rebbeinu Shalom does not make mistakes, and he gave me that beautiful neshama. So I have a lot to offer, but it's not the same thing that other people have to offer. I'm my own unique person. Rebbeinu Shalom made Chazal say, Moshe Partzuf Feyam Shonos, Cain Deoseyam Shonos. Just as there are no two people who look exactly alike in his world, Hashem made everybody look different, so too are their deos, the way they think, different. So I can respect what another person is thinking without it, affecting me, without it diminishing me. I don't have to be diminished by what the other person says, and therefore I don't have to win, but that'll happen only if I have a good sense of self. And I do have to cultivate a good sense of self.
How do you do that? But hold on, we've got a couple of questions coming in. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry about that. So much of this thing, like I'm just seeing from, in general, people feeling that it's just with life being so overwhelming, and so much of, as women, we're so emotional to begin with. Just more and more people are just keep saying it's how do you do that? Like now in the moment, how do you change yourself? Let's say today somebody decides, today I'm listening to the show, I want to make a change today. What's the first thing they can do right now?
Well, I think, first of all, that self-care, taking care of oneself, and at the end of the day, writing down, these are the things today that I'm proud of, that I did. Today I sent off the children, and I wasn't as nervous as I usually am. I sent off my children with a hug and a kiss and wishing them well. Today I straightened out the house. Today I made a good supper. Today when my husband came in, I ran to the door and I greeted him. And I said to him, oh, it's so great to have that you came home, and you take even the children to the door with me. And everybody says, oh, jumps up and down, Tati's home, Tati's home. You can't imagine what that does for a man when he sees that everybody is so excited. And I did that. I was the one that did that. And I called a shut-in today, or I called a friend to see how she's doing. I make myself a list at the end of the day of the things that I did that I'm proud of. And it's really critical to do that, because oftentimes the only thing we focus on are where we botched up. Today, I should have, I didn't speak nicely to my mother-in-law or to my sister. I was nervous when I spoke to her, and I minimized whatever it is she told me, whatever it is. We always think of the negative things we aren't proud of. It's very, very important.
You're saying that's building, you were saying about building ourself, right. Building our self-confidence. And that's, you're calling that self-care. Interesting.
Self-care.
People talk getting your nails done and getting massage. That's yours, just is real and potent. And it's just like the best self-care I ever heard. Is everyone taking note of this? Gorgeous.
Yeah. Self-care, it's very, very important. And once I fill up, it's filling up that black hole inside of me, where then if I'm feeling good about myself, then I can be charitable to others. If nothing's going on, if I'm feeling like a failure, then I have nothing to offer anybody else. So people think that it's religious. Sometimes they think it's religious to knock myself and to think that, and to feel guilty because I'm not like this, I'm not like that, I didn't daven long enough, and whatever it is. But that's not really the Jewish way. The Jewish way isn't to wallow in guilt and to point out to ourselves everything we didn't do right. Would I like to say brachas in the morning? Sure, I'd like to say brachas. And the day that I manage it, when I have a house full of kids and I'm able to say brachas, so that is fantastic. And I write it down on my list. I manage today to say brachas. On the day when things are so hectic and I don't, so I say to myself today, I didn't manage to do this, but you know what? I talk to the Rebbetzin Shalom, especially mothers with the little children. I talk to the Rebbetzin Shalom all day long. When I diaper my child, I say, "Oh, look at this delicious pulkis. Thank you, God, for giving me a baby who is so delicious." Whatever it is, we thank Hashem. Thank you for the cake that I made that came out. It didn't flop. Thank you, Hashem. I say thank you, Hashem, all day long. And once I say thank you, Hashem, that's a tefillah. It's not formal tefillah, but it's tefillah. And that constitutes connecting to the Rebbetzin Shalom. So when I say to myself, "Oh, I connected to the Rebbetzin Shalom today." When I remembered to say my bracha, thank you Hashem, like you did earlier, Leah. You made a bracha on your water. That's wonderful.
I'm going to write that on my list today. Woo-hoo. That's right. Exactly. Okay, we've got questions, but I want to go on to the next issue before that question comes up. Okay. So the next one we want to talk about is the tone and atmosphere of the home is the wife. And what do you mean by that? Because I get a lot of things like when, I'll be teaching something and so when's the men's class, so it's kind of like, why is it the woman's responsibility to manage the home, to set the tone in the home? That doesn't seem, first of all, why is it that way? And secondly, how do you do it if that's the case?
Right. So first of all, you talk about responsibility, but it's really the privilege that the Rebbetzin Shalom has seen that a woman is the one that's best equipped to do that. So she's the one that creates that environment in the home, because she's the one that's the primary nurturer of children. She's the primary nurturer of her husband. She's the one that everything that's going to happen in the home is going to be a result of what she does. It's all about her. If she's able to create a simcha atmosphere in the home, that is the hugest accomplishment. And that's done by all of the things we spoke about, by grabbing a child and kissing the child, by a husband greeting him in a way that builds him up. So it's the woman, and there are very good reasons why I get women all the time who tell me I work outside the home and I work inside the home and I'm so exhausted and I'm so tired. I just don't have energy for that. But that has to be a priority, because it's part of what Rambam says. Rambam says that's what's most important for a husband is respect. He needs respect from his wife. And Rambam says that she's supposed to look up to him like a sar and a melech, like he's a king or a high official. And the reason that Rambam says that is because Rambam knows the psychology of human beings. And he knows that what makes a man really feel good is being the man of the house. And the man of the house means that we look up to him with respect. So what that means is when a husband at the Shabbos table says a really nice bar Torah, we look at him and our eyes should shine. And we say to him, Abba, and you say in front of all the children, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. Or if he sings Miras nicely, whatever he does, that, like you said, we can catch him in the act of doing something right. And we comment on that, and we comment on it in front of our children. That's huge. That's respect. That's showing respect. Now, of course, the husband has his responsibility towards a woman. And Rambam says that a woman, while a man needs first and foremost respect, not exclusively, but first and foremost, a woman needs respect, but that first and foremost, she needs love and nurturing. And that's what a man has to give the wife.
And I just want to also give a little bit of a timeout, because I get a lot of women who say to me, I'll respect my husband when he's respectable. And I'm like, no, it's actually the other way around, that exactly. Respect is granted, never earned. That if you respect your husband way beyond what, someone's like, my husband doesn't even know how to change a diaper right. And he can't even, put the tabs right. And he can't, all these things he can't do. I can't respect a man like that. I'm like, no. If you begin to respect your husband in the way he craves, like it's oxygen to him, if you begin to respect him in even when he doesn't deserve it, and even one thing, if let's say he's got 20 things you don't respect and he's got one that you do respect, focus on that one thing that you respect and let that grow. It is so crucial. He will rise to your expectations of him.
Right. Because, and the reason that happens is because there's nothing that a husband wants more than the respect of his wife. That's more than anything else, whether it's an intimacy, whether it's everything like changing the light, but whatever it is, a husband wants his wife's respect. He needs to be the hero of his wife. That's what the macho image, the macho configuration of a man is, that he wants his wife to look up to him. And so the Rambam tells us all these things, but then there are the behavioral components of this. It's not just theory. So the Rambam, the behavioral components are that if a woman wants to build this respect, that before she goes out of the house, even if she knows her husband's going to be fine with it, whether she goes in marketing or she goes to shear, that she say to her husband, honey, or whatever you call him, is it okay if I go out now? To ask permission. Asking permission is an expression of respect. And for a wife to look good for her husband, instead of some wives think, well, he married me already and I can look as schleppy as I want. For a husband to come home and to see her, maybe she has a sheitel that she keeps for the kitchen, not her best sheitel, or maybe she puts on her tichel in a way that's attractive. And if she wears makeup, maybe she goes into the bathroom to check if her makeup is on, that she should look presentable to her husband when she greets him at the door, because the message she's giving her husband is, I care about what you think of me. I want to look good for you because you are more important to me than anybody else. Rebbetzin Weinberg used to tell the story, Rebbetzin Zachrono Livracha, she used to say that whenever she heard the Rosh Yeshiva, husband was Rosh Yeshiva of Ner Israel, whenever she used to hear his car come into the driveway, she used to run to the bathroom to see if her makeup was on right, if her sheitel was on right, and if she looked decent. And she said one time she fell asleep on the couch, and the children heard the Rosh Yeshiva's car coming into the driveway, and they knew what their mother's value was here. So they, as she was lying there sleeping, they took her makeup bag and they made her up. And she said she woke up, she looked like a clown, but she knew that the message wasn't lost on her children, that her children knew that she wanted to look good for her. That's an expression of respect. Looking nice for your husband is an expression of respect.
So I just want to do
off the phone. Just one more thing, getting off the phone. When your husband walks into the house, to get off the phone and to say to the person, I'll call you back. My husband just walked into the house. And one woman who once spoke here, she said, even if you're not on the phone, pick up that phone and say loudly so your husband can hear, my husband just walked into the house. I got to get off the phone. And that really is a gorgeous.
So I just want to, for the women who have, when I say respect your husband, they're like, when he respects me, I'll respect him. And there's this whole equality thing. And I get it. And I think the Rebbetzin pointed out, and this is what the thing I wanted to emphasize, is that for a man, it's like oxygen, getting respect. And we've been, by the culture out there, we're taught you need respect, when they're really missing the boat, because what we need far more than respect is connection. Like, I mean, any woman who I've ever talked to, thousands of women, I'm like, would you rather have your husband respect you and look up to you and think you would, or would you rather feel close to him? It's like, there's a no-brainer. It's like closeness is really what's, now it's not that he should disrespect us or treat us poorly God forbid.
Right.
I'm just saying this. So when you are taking this on in terms of doing some of the things that the Rebbetzin said, keep in mind, it's not a question of, oh, you're not equal. Women are superior. Why would we? Why? No. But the issue is that for this type of a thing, you have to understand men need it like oxygen. And the proof is in the pudding. This is a try this at home activity. Go show your husband more respect. Act like, whatever you can do to respect him more, and some of the things that the Rebbetzin is saying, and you will watch a shift in your husband. It's kind of like, it's mind blowing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, good. We're going to take this question, and I want to go to our last point, but let's go ahead with one last thing.
Okay, so somebody is asking, how does somebody who has a lot of past hurt, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with her husband and her being, having altercations, but just in general, just past hurt from the relationship, how does she become motivated to press the pause button in the future?
Yeah, that's a real good question. I mean, sometimes if she can work these things on her own, but oftentimes you need a mentor, you need a therapist to help you sort things out. And there's nothing shameful about going to somebody, to have somebody that you sit down with and you say, look, I'm carrying around all of this stuff, and I don't seem to be able to move forward until I could let go of all these things. So, when you don't let go, it's like the resentment that builds up is so huge. And that resentment is poison. And somebody says it's like giving the other person, taking poison and hoping that the other person will die. When we're resentful, we're the ones that are poisoned. We're the ones that are taking poison. So if sometimes it's not doable in little steps by ourselves, when you say to yourself, one of the things that's important to know is that I'm the thinker. I'm the thinker. So when I have all these thoughts, these resentful thoughts, if I stop and I say to myself, you know what, Feigy, you don't have to be thinking what you're thinking now, because you are the thinker. And if I say that to myself, then I could let those thoughts go. They'll come a million times during the day. But if I let them just pass through my head, it's like clouds that are in the sky. But if I wait, the clouds will pass and the sun will shine. If I say to myself, I'm the thinker, I don't have to be thinking this. And if I let go of that thought, not engage it, I don't have to argue with it and say, but just let it go, we make room for positive thinking. So long as our head is filled with those resentful thinking, then nothing else, there's no room for anything else. But if I just let it go, I say to myself, I really don't want to be thinking this, not making me happy. Or like they say, it's not the bus I want to take. I've taken that bus many times, and I don't like the destination. Right. So why would I want to be thinking this? So if I can manage to say it to myself, no, I don't want to be thinking this. I go on, I bake a cake, I talk to a friend, not about that, just call a friend, and I just get myself out of thinking that negative thinking. Then it passes. It passes, and then some other good thoughts will come in their stead. Now, it takes doing to do that. I keep saying to myself, you know what? I'm the thinker. I'm the thinker. Nobody's making me think this because it's my head and I'm the thinker. And the thoughts
You're saying I'm the thinker, meaning it's not happening to me. I'm the one who's having these thoughts and I have a choice.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay,
exactly.
Got it.
Right. Yeah. And if I say that, then, sometimes we're so consumed by that kind of thinking. And if I just say to myself, you know what? I don't have to be thinking this. I'm going to go out. I'm going out for a walk. I'm talking to a friend. I don't want to be thinking this. So I distract myself and I get away from it. And then when you come back, it's not, I'm not thinking it anymore. And we make room for good thoughts. They tell a very cute little story that I've told many times about a guy who's at work and his car breaks down. He asks the boss to give him a ride home. The boss says, okay. And he brings the guy, this worker home. And before the worker goes into his house, he does something on a bush outside the door. He stays there for a split second, and then he goes into the house. And the next day, the boss says to him, you know, I saw you do something. Is that a ritual or something? What were you doing? He says, you know what? He says, I come home from work and I've had a bad day oftentimes. Things have happened to me. And I don't want to bring that into my home, to my family. He says, so I stop at that bush outside the house. It's my trouble bush. I hang all the troubles on that bush. And then I go into my house and I can enjoy my family. And the next morning, when I come out and I want to pick up my troubles, there's so fewer troubles than I put there the night before. So that's, that's my trouble bush. And all of us have a wonderful thing because we have a mezuzah. We don't have to have a trouble bush. We walk into the house and we say, okay, Rebbetzin Shalom, I have all this thinking and I have all this resentment. I have all these problems. And I want to put them on you. You can carry them. And we put them, we stop by the mezuzah and we say, okay, Rebbetzin Shalom, you carry it. And then when I come back and I walk out the door, there aren't nearly as many problems because they're burnished on.
Gorgeous. Okay, we're almost out of time. I just have one final question, which is catching our husbands doing something right. And yeah, so this is a point.
That's huge. Yeah, that's very huge, Leah. Because we always have a tendency to catch them doing what's wrong, but to watch carefully and to see and to be in that mode where I want to catch my husband, whether it's my husband, whether it's my children. My husband walked in and he walked by and he saw the garbage. He took the garbage out. And he comes back and I say, thank you. That was so nice. I really appreciate that. You did that. Or he makes some move to clear off the table. Or I'm washing dishes and he picks up a towel and whatever it is. Or he sings beautiful mirrors at the table. Or he picks up a child, he helps bathe a child. Whatever it is, if we watch carefully, or even that we sit at the table and I say, children, your father is so wonderful. He works so hard. He goes away in the morning and all day long he's working so that we can eat this food and you can have nice things. Your father is so wonderful. So let's say thank you to Tati. Catching him doing something right. If we really look, we will find whether it's our husbands, whether it's children, watching them instead of finding ways to scold them for they're not doing right. But you played so nicely with your sibling today. That is so nice. Catch them doing, because what that does is that it encourages them to do even more. When you give positive feedback, then a person wants to do more. If you never notice, then human nature is such that what's the point?
So true. Okay. How can people, what, I know you've written 5 books, Rebbetzin. You've had this new book called The Future of Friendship.
Yes.
What's that book? Just tell us a little thing, and where can people get it?
People can get it in bookstores, or they can look at Amazon. Full Time is the one that distributes it. Mosaic Press in Israel is the publisher. So between all of those places, you can get that. And it's somebody told me it's like their companion, that they sit and they read it and they feel that, like one woman said, I feel like you're right next to me and giving me advice. Uh-huh. So basically, that's what the book. And
it's about how to create friends in your life.
How to create friendships in your life, and friendships with. It's a long time since I wrote it, but I imagine it would be friendships with ourselves, friendship with everybody, all the important people in our life.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, Rebbetzin, I'm so grateful to you. It is like a wealth. This is one of those ones, ladies, you have to watch again to get all of the little particles. There was so much packed into this show. I'm so grateful to you. You're just this wealth of wisdom, and your kind neshama, your soul really, really came shining through. Very, very grateful to you for all of your.
And you should have bracha and tzlacha in everything that you do. It's a wonderful what you do. To help women every which way. So you and your staff everybody should have bracha and hatzlacha and a freilich Chanukah, and we should have nisim that started on Chanukah should continue to suffuse our lives, each one in whatever they need. The nisim that
Amen. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. This is Leah Richeimer for the Ladies Talk Show. We'll see you next time. Here's the thing, ladies. If you don't subscribe, you may miss out and you're going to miss some great content. So you need to either like us or follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, on Torah Anytime, on YouTube, or go right to our website, www.ladiestalkshow.com, and fill in a subscription button. And then you'll get every week an update on exactly what's happening. And if you do that, oh, by the way, if you subscribe on our website, you also get 10 tips to have a great relationship. Don't miss it. And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks a lot.